Okay, thank you for attending today's webinar. On behalf of the Clean Energy Districts of Iowa, my name is Paul Cutting. Today's webinar is about Alliant's proposed rate increases. Our speaker today is Jim Martin-Schramm. Jim serves as a policy analyst for Clean Energy Districts of Iowa and has submitted expert witness testimony in several dockets before the Iowa Utilities Board. Jim retired from Luther College faculty in 2021. Most of Jim's scholarship has been in the area of ethics and public policy. Much of his expert witness testimony has focused on customer affordability and the high energy burdens many Iowa households face. Jim currently serves on the boards of the Winneshiek Energy District and the Future Energy of Iowa. He's also the chair of the Decorah Sustainability Commission. We've asked Jim to present today because he's serving as the manager of the CEDI Coalition, which has received permission from the Iowa Utilities Board to be an official intervenor in the docket where the board is considering Alliant Energy's proposed rate increases. Following Jim's presentation, there will be a short time set aside for questions. Questions will be moderated by me and may be submitted through the Zoom chat function. Take it away, Jim.
All right, thanks very much, Paul. Appreciate the invitation to provide this webinar. It's been a pleasure serving as the manager of the CEDI Coalition. I'm a former college professor, so I probably should have produced a script for this webinar, but I'm going to do it the way I normally taught my classes, so hopefully I'll stay within our time frame. My goal is to leave at least 15 minutes for questions and answers at the end. Whoops, can't seem to advance my slides. There we go. I guess I'll use my mouse. This is what I want to cover, just a little bit of background about, well, who is this Clean Energy Districts of Iowa? My guess is that it's not an organization that's familiar to too many folks. We use the acronym CEDI, that's how we pronounce it, CEDI. So I'll talk a little bit about that, provide a little bit of background about what's in Alliant's proposed electric rate increase. Alliant's proposal to the board is to increase both its gas and its electric rates. The gas rate increase is only around 5% for residential customers, which seems to be reasonable to us. So we're not intervening on that. We're just intervening on the electric rate side. Share a little information about, well, what is this CEDI Coalition, who constitutes it, and then, as I said, open it up for questions and answers. So this is our general logo. The Clean Energy Districts of Iowa are modeled after the U.S. Soil and Water Conservation Districts. You may remember that those districts came into existence after the Dust Bowl, when American farmers realized, you know, we could really benefit from some technical expertise to help us be better stewards of our water and soil. That's kind of the general idea behind the energy district movement. Our goal is to bring expert assistance to homeowners, businesses, ranchers, farmers in every county in Iowa. And, you know, we dream big, so we want to do that in every county in the United States. But the idea is to have within every county an entity that can provide expert energy planning assistance to homeowners, business owners, farmers, etc. So just a little bit about our mission. It's a little lengthy, a little wordy, so bear with me here on the mission and vision statements. Our mission is to strengthen and spread the clean energy district model by providing critical services to member districts and creating a policy mechanism to authorize and fund clean energy districts at the state and federal levels. That's not the focus for our conversation today. Our vision, what do we want to see? Well, we want to see a locally led and locally owned clean energy future and a clean energy transition led by clean energy districts in every county in the country. Our vision is to bring shared prosperity, resiliency, and vibrancy to every community and county. To ensure the clean energy district energy transition moves us towards a more socially and economically inclusive and just society and economy. That is, we don't want to see all of the benefits of the clean energy transition really land in the laps of a few. We want many, and especially the poor, to benefit. Part of our mission is we are concerned about climate change, and so we're trying to build consensus around and accelerating climate stewardship everywhere to meet the goals of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. So that's the mission and the vision of the Clean Energy Districts of Iowa. I'll say more about where our energy districts are located and the growth of the movement a little later. But getting to the focus of this webinar, it's precipitated by Alliant's proposal to increase electric rates. As I said, we're just focusing on the electric side, not on the natural gas side. This is the company's sixth request to increase electric rates since 2004, and it is the largest in the company's history, $284 million increase to the revenue requirement. You'll note down here a source thing. Later, you should receive a recording of this webinar and also a PDF copy of the slides. I'm pretty confident that when you access that PDF copy, you'll be able to click on these hot links and be able to access these sources at your leisure. So that's what's bringing us together, is this proposed electric rate increase. The company, Alliant, sent all of its customers back in October, I think it was, a notice which included this table. And this table summarizes what they expect will be the estimated average monthly electric bill impacts for a typical customer. I just want to point out that this column, the last column, was actually added. The Iowa Utilities Board required Alliant to add this column so that customers could see what would be the cumulative impact of this rate increase, because the company is proposing to phase it in over 2 years, beginning in October of this year, and then another increase in October of 2025. This phased in aspect of the rate increase is a source of some discussion. I'm not going to get into that here, but I want you to be aware of that. One of the unique things about this approach, or this request to increase or adjust rates, is how Alliant describes it, and the board describes it, is that in the past they have implemented interim rates. That is, as soon as they filed to increase rates, they also increased our bills. But in this case, the company has decided not to implement an interim rate increase, but rather to phase it in over the course of 2 years. There's some question about the legitimacy of doing that, but that's for a different time. Since most of this particular screenshot is of the notice that was sent to residential customers, that's why the residential line is highlighted in yellow. So just to review that, right? Bill prior to October of 2024, based on 738 kilowatt hours per month, and including a basic service charge increase from $13 to $15.50. That's a 19% increase in the basic service charge. The company estimates that after phase 1 is implemented, that will increase a customer's bill by about $10, from $130 to $140, and then again by about another $7.50 in October of 2025. That's an average bill increase. Some customers will see a higher increase, and some will see a lower increase. But that's a 13.4% increase in total, which is not insignificant. Many of the comments in the docket filed by residential customers, especially fixed income households, have pointed out that they happen to have gotten a 3.2% cost of living adjustment increase from Social Security. And obviously that's a lot smaller than the 13.4% increase in what will be coming in their electric bill if the board approves Alliant's proposal and does not modify it in any way. Now, if you run a small business, if you are a church or a nonprofit that takes service from Alliant under their non-residential general service rate, then you're not looking only at a 13.4% increase, you're looking at a 20% increase. And if you're a large general service customer, which is they consume a lot of energy, electricity in the form of energy and capacity and are billed separately, they're facing a 17.4% increase. And if you're a large general service customer that happens to have solar or other forms of distributed generation, that puts you in this LGS supplementary category, then you're facing an average bill increase of 20%, like the general service folks. However, this is average. And so, for example, my former employer, Luther College, has 1.7 megawatts of solar. When they have crunched the numbers based on how Alliant has revised their tariffs and the structure of billing, they're not seeing 20%. They're seeing 36 to 38%. Which is that opened some eyeballs at Luther College and I think for some other large general service customers. So there's a lot at stake for all of these ratepayer classes. Interestingly enough, the lighting area, which affects municipal governments, is projected to be a 0% increase. And that's great for them. It's not clear to me why that's the case, but we take Alliant at their word that that's the case. So that's good news for the cities that have joined the CEDI Coalition. But most of those cities that have joined the CEDI Coalition take service under the non-residential general service rate and under the large general service rates, which are 17.4 or 20%. So that's the kind of quick overview of what Alliant is telling its customers to expect if their proposal is approved as filed. This is some of the language that accompanied their customer notice. I'll just read it because it's a lot. The drivers of our proposed electric rate increase include our investments to build a more reliable, sustainable, and resilient energy future to benefit our customers and the communities we serve in Iowa. We are investing to diversify our generation resources, expand economic opportunities, replace and upgrade aging infrastructure, and create a healthier environment that benefits all Iowans. By building cost-effective projects and modernizing the energy grid, we'll be improving security, reliability, and resilience. At the same time, we are continuing to meet all customers' energy needs in light of rising costs that have impacted all industries. Excuse me. So that's there's more verbiage in the customer notice, but in terms of what fits on a slide, I thought I'd go with this. Some of the comments in the docket have expressed frustration that the customer notice doesn't sort of break down. Well, exactly, you want $284 million more in revenue. How are you going to, what for? And so I put together the following slides to sort of break that down a little bit for you. One of the 17 witnesses that have supplied testimony in the docket is Neil Michek. I don't forgive me, Mr. Michek, if that's not the way you pronounce your surname, but I'm going with Michek. And in his testimony, which is extensive, 64 pages, he provides these two tables. So this is a screenshot from his testimony on page 17. And we don't have the time here to go into depth about all of these. And I have a few slides that follow that sort of provide at least a visual way to connect to some of these numbers. But one of the important parts in phase one, remember, so phase one would be beginning in October of 2024, is for Alliant to recover some of their costs for investing in 400 megawatts of solar. That's 49% of the phase one revenue requirement. And then they have other investments, that's called rate base, other infrastructure investments, the undergrounding of power lines, the fiber optic network I'll talk about in a moment, existing rate base like the Lansing generating station that has now been closed. Anyway, you can see that's the other kind of half of this of phase one. Then they want to recover, they want to earn a return on equity for their investments, so that's a good sized chunk of phase one. They want to recover half of what they provide in incentive compensation to their executives. There is this line here, oops, sorry. SMEC refers to the Southern Minnesota Energy Cooperative. Maybe I'll talk more about that on the next slide. But you can see that's a relatively small portion of phase one. And in part, I believe that's because they are flowing to Iowa ratepayers some tax benefits associated with this sale. But nevertheless, it does result in some cost to ratepayers that the company wants to recover. They also want to recover some of their costs from the, extraordinary derecho that happened. They've had two, but it was the first one that caused the most damage. And then there are some credits, reductions in O&M. The state of Iowa has reduced the rate on corporate income taxes. And so that's going to be a benefit to us, and then just miscellaneous things. So phase one, there's your 160.6 million of the 284. And then in phase two, here's the rest of it, 123.7 million. A big chunk based on a change in how they are measuring the depreciation of their assets. They commissioned a independent third party to do that, and that's gonna, result in a pretty significant, $41 million chunk of that $284 million revenue requirement. Then there is this the Southern Minnesota Energy Cooperative. Back in about 10 years ago or so, Alliant decided to sell their service territory area in the state of Minnesota, which consisted of some rural electric cooperatives in the southern tier of the state. And when they did that, however, they signed a power contract with Southern Minnesota Energy Cooperative to provide them wholesale power for 10 years. That contract is expiring in 2025, and that contract expiration is precipitating a series of costs to Iowa ratepayers based on what Alliant wants as a consequence of that. Related to that are some excess deferred income tax expenses. This has to do with the way that the SMEC thing was associated with the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, and now it's associated with the Iowa Utilities Board. That's necessitating certain changes. And in any case, that results in, again, not an insignificant amount of the phase two revenue requirement. And then this is just an ongoing cost for their solar investments. So I know there are a few things more boring than reading a table of numbers. So let's get back to some pictures. I am a policy analyst for the Clean Energy Districts of Iowa. We support clean energy. And so it's a little awkward for us because we do not oppose Alliant's 400 megawatts of solar. We think our country needs more renewable energy, and especially in Iowa, more solar. So we're not opposed to this, but we have concerns about the affordability of it and whether expenses could have been reduced or could still be reduced, for example, through a lower return on equity for certain parts of this. So in any case, Alliant wants to install 400 megawatts of solar in 3 different locations around the state, 2 installations at Duane Arnold, and then a 50 megawatt in the Weaver project in Lee County, and another, I think it's 50 megawatt project, or 150 megawatts, sorry, in Weaver, and a 50 megawatt project in Union County, and then another 200 megawatts at Duane Arnold. So that's, as I said, that's 50% of the phase 1 revenue requirement. Another really big infrastructure investment by the company, in addition to the undergrounding of power lines, which they just have a regular, well, I guess I have another slide about that, sorry. So another important part of their application to raise rates is to recover costs associated with building a high bandwidth fiber communications network between all of their facilities in Iowa, with the ability to communicate back over to Madison, Wisconsin, which is where Alliant Energy is headquartered. Alliant does business in Wisconsin under the name Wisconsin Power Light, and in Iowa under the name Interstate Power and Light. Excuse me. They have built phase 1, and now they want to build phase 2. And it's just a fiber optic network that runs between all of their facilities. They intend to use up to 30% of the fiber capacity in this line for company business, and they intend to lease the other 70% to interested third parties that don't want to use their fiber optic network. That's great, and we hope that they are able to execute those leases, but right now they're only intending to use 30% of it, so maybe Alliant ratepayers should only be paying 30% of that cost. Anyway, that's a kind of argument that we might be proffering in this rate case. As I said, the company is undergrounding power lines, which those of us that experience the consequences of the derechos, I think all are kind of eager to see. The more that these power lines are undergrounded, the likelihood is that they will survive these big natural disaster events. But it is much more expensive to install these. And so this is another important part of the Alliant rate case. And then, as I said, there's the contract with the Southern Minnesota Energy Cooperative. These are the counties in southern Minnesota that Alliant Energy wound up selling, but also signed a contract to provide power for over the last 10 years. And that expires in 2025. And with that expiration come a host of costs, some benefits, but mostly costs to Iowa ratepayers. And so this is another important subject that will be addressed in the rate case. Finally, the last image, this is near and dear to our hearts. I'm speaking to you from Decorah, Iowa in Winneshiek County, which is adjacent to Allamakee County, the most northeast county in the state of Iowa, where Alliant has operated coal-fired power plants for 75 years. The other power plants have been decommissioned over the years, and now in 2022, the company decided to close the Lansing Generating Station Unit 4, and they ceased producing power at the end of 2022, and then demolished the whole facility by, I think it was, halfway through or into the fall of 2023. So this power plant is no longer there. However, it does still have access to the high voltage transmission system. And thus it would be an excellent place to site a clean energy project in the future. And so, as I said, the clean energy districts of Iowa support clean energy. And if Alliant Energy wants to utilize this site for a clean energy investment in the future, we support that. We hope, however, that it will be a project that will be beneficial to the community of Lansing, which is 6 miles away, and the rest of Allamakee County. This power plant has played an important role in the economy of Allamakee County. The issue in the rate case is that Alliant wants to continue recovering the remaining plant balance on this facility. And that's a lot of money, millions of dollars, and ratepayers are currently on the hook for that through 2037. The question is whether there are ways to reduce that cost on ratepayers, given that the Lansing Generating Station is obviously no longer used and useful. So anyway, that'll be a subject that we will be addressing in our testimony in the docket. This is a screenshot of the electric service territories in the state of Iowa. I think you all realize and understand that in Iowa, we're a rate-regulated state, and there is no retail competition for electric customers in the state of Iowa. Utilities are assigned service territories, and they have the exclusive monopoly to provide electricity within those service territories. The yellow areas are areas served by Mid-American Energy, and so you can see these three big blotches, but if you look closely, you'll see other chunks of yellow throughout the state of Iowa. Just as with Alliant, you can see, relatively large blotches of purple, and then, smaller chunks of purple throughout the state of Iowa. Alliant Energy is the result of a merger of 3 previous electric and separate electric utilities. So anyway, that gives you some sense of the footprint of the 2 investor-owned utilities in the state of Iowa. And then the tan areas are areas served by rural electric cooperatives, and the darker brown areas are served by municipal electric utilities. We have, I think it's 42 rural electric cooperatives and 135 municipal electric utilities, and then 2 investor-owned utilities, Alliant and Mid-American. Every year, those electric utilities have to file annual reports with the Iowa Utilities Board. And then the staff at the Iowa Utilities Board publishes an Excel spreadsheet and a consolidated spreadsheet that includes all of this data and crunches a bunch of numbers. We use that every year to perform our own analysis of the electric utility reports. These costs, 17.75 cents per kilowatt hour, are bundled costs. That means it includes your basic charge, your monthly service charge, your cost to buy electricity, your energy efficiency, cost recovery charge, renewable transmission system rider, all costs. And so it's basically how much did you pay them over the course, how much did residential customers pay over the course of a year to Alliant for all, for all things, and then divide that by the number of kilowatt hours purchased. And that's how you get to that 1775 figure. So every utility does that. And, it's, I know Alliant is frustrated with this, but it is a fact, and it has been a fact every year that we've been doing this for the last 4, 5, 6 years, that their rates on the residential side are not the highest, but awful close. Out of 181 electric utilities providing service to residential customers, they rank 175th out of 181. Their costs for residential customers are higher than every rural electric cooperative in the state of Iowa. So that's one important factor. I think there are a lot of customers who are frustrated with their high rates, and they look across the field and see their neighbor who's taking service under an REC and realizing that they're paying, and quite a bit less. And some of these RECs are way below 15 cents a kilowatt hour. Some may live in or have, family members that take service in the Mid-American service territory. And so here you can sort of see the difference. Here's that 17.75 cents per kilowatt hour cost for the average residential customer at Alliant, whereas the average residential customer at Mid-American is paying 11 cents a kilowatt hour. Now that's been increasing recently, but nevertheless, it's, Alliant's costs are 61.3% higher than Mid-American's. That's there are reasons for that. It's not like it's arbitrary, but it's not insignificant when hundreds of thousands of people are paying a lot more than the other investor-owned utility. And you can see the same is true for the commercial, the small businesses that keep our main streets alive. Their costs are almost 50% higher if you're taking service from Alliant versus taking service from Mid-American. Alliant is more competitive when you get down here to the industrial level, but it's still pretty high. And as a result, some of the big industrial customers that use a lot of electricity, they haven't been locating in the Alliant service territory. They have been locating in the Mid-American service territory. The Googles, the Facebooks, the Amazons, etc., they're all in Mid-American's territory. This is a screenshot from this website on the Alliant page or on the Alliant website. One of the outcomes of the last rate case is the board required Alliant to produce a stakeholder engagement and customer satisfaction plan, and included within that now, one component of that is to provide more information to Alliant customers. And so this website is full of a lot of really useful information. I encourage you to go to it once you get the slides and have the ability to do that. Alliant has calculated their average annual increase from 2012 to 2022 for each of the large customer classes. And you can, just sort of see how it's gone from around 13 cents to 18.04. Now, I'm not sure why that's not 17.75, but I assure you, all the numbers I'm reporting are not numbers I've calculated. These are numbers they've calculated. Anyway, you just see the general increase. Now, what I'll point out on the next slide is this is the same set of numbers, but over here I'm showing you what the average rate of inflation has been over those same 10 years using the CPI inflation calculator. Now, to be sure, it was higher this last year, but the average from 2012 through 2022 has been 2.46. But you can see that in all three ratepayer classes, Alliant's costs have increased by more than the rate of inflation for all three ratepayer classes. And that's what this little section is telling you, that on the residential side, it's 37% faster, general service 70%, large general service 79%. Those are average numbers. It varies in each year, but nevertheless, that's another form of evidence that in fact Alliance rates have been rising, and customers are frustrated. Finally, on that score, I'll just show you this slide. This is I realize this is small print, so if you're looking at this on your phone, there's no way in God's green earth you're going to see this. But this is information produced through the U.S. Energy Information Administration. I think that's right, EIA, yep. And it's looking at investor-owned utilities in the Midwest, so here are the states, that have at least 100,000 or more customers. And you can see that in the Midwest, Mid-American has the lowest cost of bundled average price for residential customers. And Alliant is towards the top, right, in terms of being highest cost. There are only 3 others of the 31 electric utilities that have higher costs than Alliant. So Alliant's costs are high in the state of Iowa, and they are high in the Midwest in general. And so this is something that we want the Utilities Board to reckon with, and perhaps our legislators to think about as well. So that's some background about the Alliant rate case, the disparities in terms of cost. I want to say a few things now about the CEDI Coalition, the Clean Energy Districts of Iowa Coalition. This is a link to our webpage where you can learn more about it. The address to it is up here at the top, but if you just Google Clean Energy Districts of Iowa, and it brings you to our main webpage, then you'll see this tab right here, CEDI Coalition. Just click on that and you'll learn some of the information I shared with you, including some additional information. Excuse me, just a minute. So who exactly constitutes the CEDI Coalition? First of all, I'll say that we are an official intervener in the rate case. The Iowa Utilities Board approved our petition to intervene. I think we petitioned in November, and we were granted intervention status, I think it was December 19th or something like that, along with other parties like the Large Energy Group, the Iowa Business Energy Coalition or Consortium, the Iowa Environmental Council, and the Environmental Law and Policy Center. I'm probably blanking on somebody right now, but those are the other interveners that I'm aware of. Some others have petitioned to intervene, Walmart, for example. There's a labor union that has, electrical workers labor union that has petitioned to intervene. So anyway, that's that. But who is the CEDI Coalition? Well, it's 12 of our we have 12 energy districts in Iowa, so they are part of it. And then to date, we have 31 communities that have voted to join our coalition. So here are the counties that have energy districts in Iowa. Winnebago County is where this movement started up here in northeastern Iowa, so it shouldn't be a surprise that you can see our impact being felt mostly in this part of the state. But we are building, we have additional energy districts under development in, I think it's at least 3 other counties right now, including Tama and another one over here. That's not my area. But anyway, you can see where they are. And then we also invited on November 21st or November 22nd of this year, we sent an email to as many email addresses we had of mayors of communities in the Alliant Service Territory, their city clerks, city administrators, etc., inviting them to join the CEDI Coalition. And to date, as of yesterday, January 15th, we have 31 communities that their city councils have voted to join the CEDI Coalition. And you can see that, they're not all up here in Northeast Iowa or even in Eastern Iowa. They are spread around the Alliant Service Territory. Here are their names. In general, these are fairly small communities who I think, I don't want to put words into their mouth, but I think they feel a little disenfranchised, and they're grateful for the fact that the CEDI Coalition exists as a way to help them make their voices heard more effectively at the Iowa Utilities Board. In November, we extended that invitation in November and then again last week to communities in the Alliant Service Territory. And in that invitation, we included a draft resolution for those communities to consider filing in the docket. It included in the whereases a lot of the information I just shared with you. And then the resolves are, these are the things we're concerned about, and we want to let you know about them. Whereas there are 31 communities that have joined the coalition, there are 59 that have passed that resolution. As you can see, they also are spread all over the state. And on the right side, you can see, which communities have passed them. Not all of these resolutions have been posted in the docket yet by the staff of the Iowa Utilities Board, but I am listing the names of all of those communities that have informed us that they did pass it, and they have sent it or are in the process of sending the resolution to the board. Board staff have been publishing these in the docket in groups of 4 to 10 at a time, and I'm sure that's probably what's happening right now. Is we'll have another dump of them pretty soon. So notice I label these IUB resolution communities. These communities have not voted to join. Well, some of these communities have voted to join the CEDI Coalition, but not all have. But I want you to see that 59 communities, based on the model resolution we provided, with the exception of Clinton, which produced their own resolution even before we sent ours out. Every one of these others utilized the draft resolution that CEDI provided. So that's a pretty significant number of communities, and in both cases, these numbers grow weekly. Other communities have this on upcoming city council agenda meetings in January and February. So what are our goals as a coalition as we intervene in this docket? One is to challenge Alliant's persistent rate increases, current high rates, and the magnitude of this record-breaking increase. To highlight the high and rising energy burden on low, middle, and fixed income households. CEDI intervened in the dockets where the Utilities Board was reviewing the new 5-year energy efficiency plans proposed by Iowa's rate-regulated utilities. And in Alliant's docket, its witnesses acknowledged that 25% of their residential base, or residential customers, are low income. That is, their household income is somewhere between 0 and 200% of the federal poverty level. So when 25% of your customers are already struggling financially, obviously another rate increase around 13.4% is going to just add to their energy burden even more. And so part of what we want to do is to make the board aware of that and to think about how this rate increase will affect low-income households, but also fixed-income households. As I said, many of the comments on the docket are from retirees who are living on fixed income, basically living off Social Security, and it's a challenge. We want to also express concern that Alliance high rates are harming the economic development of communities in Alliance service territory. We'll provide evidence that most of the economic growth and population growth in the state of Iowa is taking place in Mid-American service territory, not in Alliance. We will defend customer and community-owned distributed energy resources, such as energy efficiency, solar, geothermal, and battery storage. One of the, these rate cases are all about the details. And one of the details in this rate case is that Alliant is changing the way that they structure their bills for their customers, especially large general service customers. So I pointed out earlier that large general service customers that are full requirements customers, where Alliant provides all of the electricity, they're facing a 17% increase. Whereas large general service customers with solar or other, wind or something, are looking at a 20% average increase. But in fact, that can be quite a bit higher depending on how much capacity you have installed. Alliant has the ability to make those distinctions at the residential and commercial level, but thus far they're only making them at the large general service level. We want to highlight this disproportionate impact on large general service customers that have solar and alert the board that it's possible Alliant will come in a future rate case and propose to treat residential customers and commercial customers that have solar in a same way. And we're concerned that the cost impacts are unjust and unreasonable. Anyway, that's just a brief comment about that bullet point. And then, we support cost-efficient investments in infrastructure. We want to see improvements in grid resiliency, primarily through the undergrounding of power lines. We want to see clean energy in the state of Iowa, and we want to see reinvestment that yield ratepayer and substantial community benefits in coal plant communities like Lansing. So we are for a lot of things, including these, but we want these investments to be made in as most cost-effective a fashion as possible. So that brings me, I think, almost to the end of my remarks. I'll share with you, this was in our letter to the communities that we invited to join the CEDI Coalition. This is how much we think we can raise, or we are trying to raise, $10,000 to $20,000 to pay for our lawyers. We'll talk about that in a moment. And then, the way this works is you have to have witnesses that submit testimony, and you need to have witnesses that know what they're talking about. And so, they're not free. And I'll show you in a moment what I mean when we look at Alliance witnesses. But we intend at this point to certainly offer expert witness testimony around in at least 3 areas: customer affordability and the company's management efficiency, class cost of service, and rate design. That's kind of what I was alluding to just a minute ago about the large general service class. And then distribution asset investments. As I pointed out to you, these are a significant portion of this rate increase proposal. So over the course of the next of 10 months or so, we expect to be spending $50,000 to $80,000 of this. We are well on our way to hitting the lower figure, nowhere near hitting the upper figure. And so every community that receives the invitation is invited to consider a voluntary contribution, but no contribution is necessary to join the CEDI Coalition. But we have received contributions from communities, businesses, nonprofits, and individual donors. So we're we're making inroads, but we could make more inroads. So if you're interested, there's more information on the last slide about that. We are very fortunate to be represented legally by Cecil Wright. Cecil recently retired from the Iowa Utilities Board, where he was a senior staff attorney with 2 decades of experience at the Iowa Utilities Board and other experience in the state of Missouri prior to that. He is probably the most knowledgeable person about utility regulation in the state of Iowa that I can think of. And so we are very, very fortunate to have Cecil leading up our legal services in this docket. He's joined by his son, Cameron. They are both affiliated with a firm called the Skinner Law Office in Altoona, Iowa. So remember, right, I said 50 to 80,000. One of the things that Cecil filed was a motion to compel Alliant to meet its obligations with regard to what's called a compliance filing. And so the rules at the board say, okay, if you're filing a rate increase, you need to provide information about, well, many, many, many different things. One of those things is, well, how much do you think it's going to cost for you as the utility to litigate this rate case? And the company did provide an estimate, but it wasn't really updated to reflect actual costs. And so the CEDI Coalition filed a motion to compel, well, let's see, what did we? Yeah, anyway, we requested that the board require Alliant to file the estimated and/or actual expenses incurred to date. And Alliant said, well, actually, we inadvertently didn't file all of that information within the required deadline. So they did on whatever date that is up there. I can't see, this thing is blocking me, but anyway, they filed on January 3rd a document explaining what happened, and then a spreadsheet showing their actual and estimated costs to date. And so these 3 screenshots are an attempt to just show you what that is. So, you know, postage to send out the customer notices, $150,000. They are, even though Alliant or Interstate Power and Light has their own in-house attorneys, they have signed a contract with Dentons, Davis, and Brown to provide outside legal counsel. And to date, you can see the costs that have been incurred and how much they estimate those costs will total at the end of the rate case, $781,000 or $791,000. And then in addition to that, they have their own, you know, they have expert witnesses, and these witnesses are from a third party, the Brattle Group and their related employees. And I just highlighted here, you know, $580 an hour. As a former college professor, that just sort of makes me wonder what I do. My choices in life. Wow, $580. And so today, Sanem Zergisi has produced, you know, worked 241 hours producing at work expert witness testimony at $580 an hour for $120,000 of cost. You can see how that all winds up, and then they expect another $415,000 before the end of the rate case. And so that brings us then to the last screenshot. You know, there'll be some travel. They need to bring their expert witnesses to the hearing in Des Moines. They got to house them. They got to feed them. And then the company says, hey, you still owe us $114,000 from the last rate case. So this is the $2.5 million that Alliant anticipates it will spend litigating this rate case before the board. So that's a point of comparison between their budget and our $50,000 to $80,000 budget. It's a little bit of an eye-opener, and this was a source of controversy in the last rate case. And in the last rate case, the board disallowed some of the expenses that Alliant ran up. So, oops, sorry. That brings me to a penultimate. Just to remind you and your citizens, if you're representing a city or community, all customers have the right to file written comments and objections that include any facts that would assist the board in reviewing the proposed rate adjustment. You can send them to the board electronically, online at their website, or by email, or by mail. But you should reference the docket number, RPU 2023-002 in the subject line. And just be aware that whatever you submit is a matter of public record and will be viewable within the docket. So, classic college professor, we speak in 50-minute increments. I'll turn it over to Paul and see if we have any questions I can help to answer.
Great. Thank you, Jim. If anyone has any questions, feel free to submit them in the chat. I have several here that have been asked over the last 50 minutes. The first one, has CEDI intervened at the Iowa utilities before, and what were the results?
Yes, in terms of a rate case, we intervened in the most recent rate case for Black Hills Energy. I don't have that exact number in front of me, but together with the Office of the Consumer Advocate, we were able to enter into a settlement agreement that resulted in a reduction of the revenue requirement by, I think it was around 40%. So that's a pretty significant reduction in cost. We have also participated in the last rate case with Alliant through the Decorah area group, the Winneshiek Energy District. CEDI didn't exist at that point. And so the Winneshiek Energy District was one of several members of the Decorah area group. And that group, together with the other intervenors, helped to secure a reduction in the revenue requirement. Again, I don't have that number right off the top of my head, but it was over 30%, closer to 35% total reduction in the revenue requirement. And then, of course, we participated, as I said, in the we were an official intervener in the 5-year energy efficiency plan dockets.
Another question on here. You've noted that Alliant is going to spend about $2.5 million relating to this rate increase. Who specifically bears those costs? Who's paying for that?
The ratepayer, the Alliant ratepayers.
Someone asks, why are Alliance rates generally so much higher than Mid-Americans?
Well, I mean, as I said earlier, Alliant is the product of a merger of 3 other electric utilities. As a result, its geographical footprint is large. It covers somewhere around 80 of the 99 counties in the state of Iowa. They don't serve everybody in those counties, but they touch somebody in all of those counties. So they have a big geographical footprint. They have, as a result, they have fewer customers per mile of distribution line compared to Mid-American. But I'll say that while that's true, their costs are higher than rural electric cooperatives who have even fewer customers per mile. But another really important factor is the fact that several years ago, going on 2 decades ago, Alliant sold their high voltage transmission system to ITC Midwest. And so they don't control that. And Mid-American didn't do that. And so high voltage transmission for a residential customer is less than 1 cent per kilowatt hour if you're a Mid-American customer. And it's almost 4 cents a kilowatt hour if you're an Alliant customer. As you think about that gap between 17.75 and 11.01, almost 4 cents of that gap is the renewable transmission system rider that Alliant has to pass on so that ITC Midwest can recover their costs. So off the top of my head, those are the 3 main reasons.
The next question here is perhaps more of a statement, but I think it comes probably from someone from a small community. They say energy burden matters to lower income households, but also not dissimilarly to communities, especially small communities. High rates are an ever-growing type of wealth extraction, which is an economic drain as well as an economic growth barrier. No?
Yes, no, that's absolutely the case. Recent decisions by the Iowa legislature have made funding municipal governments even more challenging. And municipal governments have had to trim their budgets, find more revenue or reduce costs in order to comply with state regulation. And so now, well, for example, the city of Decorah spends about $500,000 a year on electricity, and a 15 to 20% increase is, you know, $75,000 to $100,000 more a year in expense. That's a lot. That's a lot for a municipal government. So it is a real challenge, and some of these communities are grateful that the CEDI Coalition exists. That, you know, try to go to bat for them in this rate case.
Someone on here asks, what approximately is Alliant's annual profits and their shareholder dividend payouts?
They have been they've increased their dividends every year for as long as I can remember. One of the whereases in the resolution identifies their gross profits for last year, and I apologize, I don't have that document in front of me right now, but I want to say it was at least $1 billion. Could be wrong, but we can certainly furnish that to whoever asked that question. But they're doing quite well as a corporation.
Someone on here asks, are there any regulatory tools the legislature could adopt to keep Alliance prices lower?
The legislature in its last session passed a law at which the governor signed that required the Iowa Utilities Board to do a study of how rate making is conducted in the state of Iowa. The utility board hired a third-party consultant, the London Economics International Group, to do that. It ran through, there were a series of meetings during the fall of 2023, which CEDI participated in, along with all of the all of the utilities in Iowa, gas, electric, water, and many other parties, all of the regular intervenors in these dockets. The LEI group published its report in December. The top line recommendation is that the state legislature pass a law mandating something called integrated resource planning, which is where a utility, and this is common in most states, where a utility, if they want to build 400 megawatts of solar, they have to come in and show the utility board how that fits into their integrated resource plan and why it's justified on the basis of it. There's a lot more that can be said about that topic, but it is the chief recommendation of that report. There are lots of other recommendations, excellent recommendations in that report.
And finally, we're going to keep to an hour here. So our final question is Alliant going to provide more energy efficiency and rebate assistance to their customers to potentially help offset some of the higher costs from the rate increase?
The company is rolling out its new 5-year energy efficiency plan, which, as I said, just went through review at the Iowa Utilities Board last year. So there will be a suite of energy efficiency programs that customers in all ratepayer classes can participate in. CEDI, in its intervention, was pushing for more generous equipment rebates with regard to air source heat pumps, especially cold climate air source heat pumps. We were pushing for more outreach to low-income customers. And at the end of the day, you don't always get what you want. And so we won on some things, but at least now there will be a new 5-year energy efficiency program being rolled out by Alliant Energy starting in 2024. And customers can utilize those programs to reduce their energy consumption and therefore their costs. I've clicked on the last page here. You're welcome to reach out to me. My phone number is there. My email address is there. Here's the link to the CEDI Coalition website. which includes a place where if you want to donate, you can. But please reach out. Love to talk to anybody who has questions or interested in joining the coalition. Thanks, Paul, for managing our webinar today.
Great, thank you, Jim. If you'd like a recording, we will be posting this to our YouTube page by sometime tomorrow. So look forward to that. Otherwise, stay warm and thank you for your presentation, Jim.
Yep, thank you.